Alright guys, let's talk about the brand new Expedition 16 and how to finish it as fast as possible so that you can get these awesome rewards. You have a brand new ship, a new helmet piece, and also the event is actually pretty fun for the most part, except there are some bugs in it and some really annoying challenges that you have to complete. But don't worry, I'm gonna show you how to prepare and how to make them better, so let's jump right in. Now, right from the beginning, I recommend grabbing these resources right here with you if you want to make the expedition 1,000 times easier. So definitely have a lot of dihydrogen at hand, as you're going to constantly use that to craft Elixir of Glass, which is basically how you recharge the new shield mechanic. Then Mordite and Gold, these are always going to be used in the Elixir of Blood recipes, which is how you're going to power up the portals in the first place. Then also Silver that you're going to need for Elixir of Quicksilver. This is going to let you discover those portals in the first place. And the last but definitely not least, grab at least a few good max rank weapon modules, whichever one you want, but this is going to be extra needed for the 64 boundary horror defeats and the 8 corrupted sentinels that are part of 2 of some of the most annoying achievements in the new expedition. And of course, besides this, you can also squeeze in an aqua jet and also a nutrient processor so that you don't have to collect this from the space anomaly. Now, moving on to some of the mechanics here, you need to pay special attention to some of them, as otherwise they might even prevent the completion of some of the phases. So the first one is the boundary suppression mechanic, which replaces your conventional shields with a new purple one, and this one only gets to be recharged with the purple glass elixir in the expedition. Otherwise, over time, that shield will deplete, which in turn eventually will cause more of these spectral enemies to spawn, and eventually they will become hostile towards you. And trust me, in some of the later stages, you really don't want a ton of enemies to attack you at any given moment. But I do have a couple of tips to use this to your advantage still, so you're still kind of forced to defeat 64 spectrals anyway for 2 of the achievements, including the Ink Drenched Sky objective. That is why a pro move here would be to just let your shield naturally degrade over time, do not recharge it, and just let the game force spawn more spectrals, especially if you want to complete that right away. Plus, the resource, the Shattered Qualia, is still needed with the dihydrogen to craft even more purple elixirs in the first place. Tip number 2, going with your ship quickly into outer space and back will completely replenish that shield without having to consume any purple elixir. This can come in handy when you're in a clutch situation or are left without any extra elixirs. And another thing it changes is that if it depletes to pretty much 0, it eventually makes the day and night cycle much faster, to the point that it might make it impossible to complete the Serenity Reclaimed challenge, in which you have to look at the night sky for 60 continuous seconds. So if you can't complete that, this is the reason why. For the remaining bits, I've seen some of you asking me why you're unable to power up the portals. That is because you're missing the red elixir. So Elixir of Blood is needed to power up and give it that special setting over there that turns it purple and lets you travel to the next rendezvous point. Otherwise, it will simply not activate. So each phase has at least one of these recipes unlocked by one of the challenges. Just pay attention to it, complete it, and this is going to unlock it. Like I said, every single one will require Mordite and Gold, and then a third resource you can get from the expedition. And by the way, there's also, in terms of finding the portals, you need that Elixir of Quicksilver. That's all you have to have. Once you activate it, it will pinpoint the location nearby. But moving on, let's talk about making some of the other challenges way easier, beginning with a very annoying stone ghost. However, if you play this properly, you can pretty much complete it very fast within the first system. So first of all, do not listen to the game, don't use the signal scanner. That one is completely useless and will almost never show you the building that you need. Specifically in this case, you need above the ground ancient ruins, not the buried ones. You need 2 above the ground ancient ruins. So here are the steps that you need to take for that. First of all, head over to a cartographer NPC on any space station and purchase at least 2 planetary charts. Not the artifact charts, the purple planetary ones. They are the only ones that will work in this case. You should have at least 20 data points from some of the previous challenges, so you should afford at least a couple of them. From this point on, go back to your ship and create a save point. You will need this to revert back to in case something goes wrong. But from this point on, jump in your ship, go ahead and scan for alien artifacts, and you should see alien artifact appearing on your screen. If it's anything else like plague or monolith, just use another one or go back to your previous save file. But once you have discovered an alien artifact, if you pan the camera on the marker, this will now turn into an ancient ruin. So if you go to it, it's an above ground one, so you can go ahead, interact with the main device, and this is going to immediately count for that first track. You don't even have to continue to whatever destination it points towards. It doesn't even matter which of the options you pick. Whichever you pick is always going to trigger that 1 and then 2 out of 2 eventually. Repeat it one more time after completing the first one, and you're now pretty much done with the stone ghosts. Also, since we talked about going to other rendezvous points, by this time you can also jump into your anomaly. Pretty much the moment you jumped into the second system or the first rendezvous point, you can pretty much call it and also retrieve all of the items and upgrades that we talked about at the beginning of the video. Now from here, you're going to progress normally until you reach rendezvous point number 2, also known as the Garel System. This one features 4 planets in which you can complete multiple phase challenges very quickly. But it's also abandoned, so the moment you exit the portal on the first planet, place down a base computer. Otherwise, because it lacks a space station, you're not going to see it in any teleporter list, so it's going to be impossible to come back at a later date in case you already jumped from here. So just place down a base computer and you're always going to be able to teleport to it. Once you've done that, there are 2 challenges you can complete right on this very planet. The first one is Discordant, in which you have to grab 256 Atlantidium from all over the place pretty much, so just go ahead and mine for them. For Arachnophobia, if you want to spawn more of those quad-corrupted enemies, you will need to engage with dissonant swarms and destroy inverted mirrors until you get at least 3 or 4 wanted levels. That is when they start to spawn more often, and you might even get lucky and see 2 spawning at the same time. So you need 8 out of 8. This is going to be a very tedious challenge to complete. That is why I recommended a very good weapon, or at least a very good set of weapon upgrades. And once you're done with that, you can pretty much finish it and continue to the rest. This brings us to the next planet in the same system, which is the redacted planet called Twan Aen. I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly, but basically in this one you can grab all the 4 anomalous fish in the Aen Wine Dark Seas challenge, of course, from phase 3. So what I recommend here is to craft rice fish bait, and to do that you can pretty much collect resources just from the sea. So go ahead, mine some kelp sack, as this is something that you can use in the nutrient processor to turn into kelp rice, and then just combine it with any fish that you caught to turn it into rice fish bait. And just use that bait. It has an excellent chance to get anomalous fish even without any extreme weathers going on, so you can just stay there, rinse and repeat, and it should be like a 5 to 10 minute process. This system also holds a vile brood planet. You can go on it and just find vile brood, destroy it, or the endless hunger challenge. It's basically just 8 vile tendrils which you're going to find all over the place, so it should take just a couple of minutes. And finally, you can also complete the first part of the genetic glitch over here on the Todai Scaly planet. So you do need these anomaly planets because only they hold anomaly creatures. You can just go ahead, there's only like a couple of creatures here, quickly scan it, and it should count for the 1 out of 2 and ready for that glitch challenge that you will complete in phase 4. Now from this point on, you're going to move on to rendezvous point number 3, also known as Rokang. And there's only one planet here that we need, which is this planet of light called Hijo. This is the one in which you're going to find the second anomaly creature for the genetic glitch. So you can go ahead, scan it, and it's pretty much done with the bizarre life forms. And by the way, if you missed some of the previous planets, including the dissonance, there are some of them right here, as well as an active resource planet in case you also need a storm. Now, there's probably only one annoying challenge left, the one in which it requires you to find 600 of that tainted metal, and for that you're going to need to find a derelict freighter. And to find one in the first place, you need to buy a signal scanner from the space station scrap dealer, but it will cost 5 million units. So if you just follow the normal challenges, you're going to eventually get enough resources that you can afford a 5 million unit scanner. From this point on, jump in your ship, go into space, scan for a derelict freighter, and eventually, if you just warp around, you're going to find it. Now inside, I recommend doing the following. Go ahead and find all the captain and the crew logs. You should have one of each if you just go each section one by one. And second of all, also go ahead and open every container that you find along the way. Especially in the second last room or even last room, you should have like at least a dozen of them each. So in total, you should have at least 200 from just collecting them, another 200 or so from selling one of the logs, and then another 200 from selling the second log to the dealer, totaling at least 600. But it doesn't stop here. You can use the 600 metal that you got, not just to complete this challenge that you just did, but also to complete the nanite related one. So what you can do is purchase some of the suspicious packets from him, especially the tech one, because if you open these, it can give you several illegal modules, which you can sell for hundreds of nanites each, or you can just buy illegal modules outright and sell them right away. But in either of these situations, it will get you much closer to the 4200 that you need to finish that, nanite related challenge. And from this point on, the only other thing I recommend is paying attention to the system you're in, and especially the planets, as more often than not, these are going to be needed to complete some of those challenges. Like I said, you can use the ones from Rendezvous Point 2 or 3, but if you are further than that, pay attention to the space station and try to teleport back if you can. But once you're done with all of this, you can pretty much go ahead and redeem all of your items, get that Boundary Herald ship, which looks really awesome, kind of like a UFO, but a lot of folks also compare it with the Millennium Falcon. There are some similarities indeed, and it's also kind of like in the Explorer category, so it gets some big bonuses to hyperdrive range, more so than damage at the very least. You also get the Boundary Mandible, which is a really nice helmet piece that fits very well with one of the previous armor sets we got. Plus you get that Bioluminescent Companion and even the Jetpack Trail. And even if you are a new time player, I still recommend jumping straight into the expedition because you get so many extra rewards, like more inventory slots, a lot of tech upgrades, and of course a lot of nanites and even quicksilver as you finish the expedition with high scores. But that is pretty much it. Thanks much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.